Ireland team. Confirmation of it this morning came. Jack McGrath, Rob Herring and John Ryan is the front row. It's James Ryan and Ian Henderson in the second row. It's Peter O'Mahony who captains the team, Geordie Murphy and CJ Stander 6, 7 and 8. Conor Murray and Joey Carbery is the 9 and 10 partnership. We're going to be seeing a lot of that into the future. Keith Earls and Jacob Stockdale and Rob Kearney is the back three, with Robbie Henshaw and Bundy Aki back in harness as the centre partnership. The subs bench, Sean Cronin, Cian Healy, Tadhg Furlong, which is an amazing front row to be able to spring from the bench at some point. Quinn Rue and Jack Conan are the other forward cover. Kieran Marmie and Johnny Sexton and Jordan Larmour on the bench there as well. So this is going to be pretty interesting. It's high risk.
It is high risk. It's like beautifully high risk in kind of a calculated way. And there is the opportunity to take further risks. If it's tied at 20 points all with 10 minutes to go and Jordan Larmour still isn't off the bench, Joe Schmidt is bringing him on.
Yeah, but I like not starting Sexton. It also keeps that captaincy debate nicely boiling. It's like, who's going to be the captain now? Is it Peter O'Mahony? Well, Peter O'Mahony for this game. O'Mahony's going to be rested for the next game. Johnny Sexton's going to come in and captain the team. And then when they're both on the field of play, who is the captain?
Yeah, Neil Tracy out in the office earlier on was pondering the question, when was the last time Johnny Sexton started at number 22 for Ireland?
For Ireland?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure, I didn't actually get the answer, but I'm pretty sure I overheard the answer being that famous Wales game in the World Cup.
Right.
So, you know, terrible omen right there, if you believe in omens.
It's quite a long time ago at this point.
It is. It just goes to show that it's going to be just odd seeing the number 22 painted on his back.
Like, clearly what Schmidt's doing is making sure that he's got the strength and depth. There's an interesting column today from Neil Francis where it probably bears a few of the points. He's still very pissed off about the fact that Joey Carbery has been moved, and makes the point that this is on the back of the Madigan situation. It was like, oh, Madigan hadn't played enough rugby at 10, and that's why we lost the Argentina game. But the previous week, Madigan had played 50-odd minutes against France.
It was like one of the most clutch performances by a 10 we'd seen
and
with
been
that amount of
sensational.
experience.
And so suddenly he gets less good at 10 a week later when he's starting on the back of not having played enough Pro 14 games. Complete bullshit he's calling. He is calling bullshit on this and saying, why don't we challenge this? How do we let the IRFU people peddle these lines? There's an N in there. How do we let them peddle these lines? He's making the point that the forwards were brilliant that week against France, and so therefore your 10 is really good. The following week, Peter O'Mahony's gone, Paul O'Connell is gone, Sean O'Brien is gone, and somebody else is gone.
Yeah, but...
And so therefore the forwards were no good, and actually it's strength and depth in the forwards that you need. Okay, so Sexton was gone as well.
How are we to know, though, that if Ian Madigan hadn't had more experience at top 14 rugby, he would have been even more sensational the week beforehand?
But
just because he was good doesn't mean
we didn't lose the game against Argentina because Madigan was playing fewer Pro 14 games at 10. We lost the game against Argentina because the entire system fell apart. Our defence out wide was absolutely rubbish. He didn't pick the right team either. He had Luke Fitzgerald on the bench when Fitzgerald clearly should have started, comes on and plays the best game of his tournament and is actually happy at the end of the game that he's played well, even though we've got hockey. So
that doesn't mean that Ian Madigan was lacking in experience. What you're saying there is all valid reasons, but it's just...
the Madigan thing is a complete red herring. To use Madigan as an excuse to move Joey Carbery to Munster is a red herring, is the point of this piece from Neil Francis.
I think it's an opportunity to slam the decision to allow Carbery to move to Munster. That's all this is. And it's almost a red herring in itself to actually...
Oh, he's entitled to do that. It's like, so Munster and Leinster are rivals, right? But as soon as a good player comes through in a position, you already have somebody, we'll have you. Like, so say the next best 6 in Ireland was currently on Munster's books. It's like, okay, thanks very much. Off you come. Leinster need a 6. Off you go.
Leinster don't need a 6.
But like, maybe they do, you know?
Yeah.
You always need better players. Like, at what point does the rivalry matter? It doesn't matter anymore. This is the end of it.
Maybe I maintain that it's not a permanent thing, this ending of the rivalry. It's a postponement of the rivalry until the end of the World Cup. It is our best ever opportunity to end our barren spell of never making a semi-finals in a World Cup. It is quite possibly the best team we've ever had in Irish rugby.
We've always said that. Before every World Cup, 18 months out from every World Cup, it's like, oh, we're finally going to reach a semi-finals.
Exactly.
Wow, look at our ambition.
and whatever the saying goes, insanity is repetition is
Definition, yeah.
You know what I was going to say. Like doing that again would have been stupid. They've actually switched it up this year. They've had to think outside the box, and postponing a rivalry is certainly outside the box thinking.
Well, there's real bite to this St. Stephen's Day fixture where the two teams are like best of buddies. They all went to the same schools, and who knows, they might all end up on the same club team next year. It's hard to find to that.
Because of Joey Carbery. So you're saying that Joey Carbery holds the keys to the Munster-Leinster rivalry?
Well, the rivalry has been completely eroded by the fact that what we're seeing is actually just the Ireland team training now.
That's professional sport in an island the size of Ireland, though. That's just the nature of it. It's unique in the sense that it's not like Ireland against England.
So are you going to tune into those games now and go, no, there's a proper bite in this? I really can't wait to see what happens here. I'll be like...
Of course I am. They're fighting against each other for places on the plane to...
We're watching a training session now.
No, we're not.
We are.
That's nonsense. We are not watching a training session. Like,
Effectively, we're watching training sessions.
I really hope that's just like a kind of deliberate hyperbole.
But that's what it feels like.
I don't know whether to entertain this anymore or not, because like I haven't been here the last 2 days, and the Carbery move happened on Thursday.
We didn't talk about it. You didn't
talk about it.
No.
So, like, do you want to get something off your chest here about how your campaign to keep Joey Carbery at Leinster failed?
No, I'm just reading Neil Francis here this morning and I'm making the points that Fran was making.
Kind of like Nigel Farage had a step down after UKIP had a terrible general election. That's the sort of thing I was expecting this morning.
I suspect Munster would rather surgically cut the hamstrings from their best player than hand him over to Leinster if Schmidt demanded that had to be done.
Yeah, if it was going the other way, I'll accept that point. Munster fans will be more up in arms than Leinster fans like you are.
The Leinster fans are up in arms. He's saying it was like a death in the family.
Yeah. Like it will be on a par, if not worse. Like, there's no question about it. There is truth to what you're saying, but I think to say that the rivalry has been eroded, like...
But it clearly doesn't matter. The rivalry clearly doesn't matter. It's just a function of...
It hasn't mattered this season just gone either.
They just played in the semi-finals. It was supposed to. Like,
so
they're supposed to drive standards against each other. The whole point of having these teams is that they try and kill each other when they're playing against each other, and then they join together and they're stronger because they drive, which is exactly what happened when we're going to hear from Alan Quinn.
Munster are stronger now, so that makes it a better rivalry. They've closed the gap between them.
We'll see. Like they're not
a better competitive rivalry.
They're not stronger on the basis of their own work. They're stronger on the basis of work done by Leinster
within the bounds of their own jurisdiction, which does matter. Like, if you pay for all these wages, for the centralised contracts, which is whatever for Munster players, but it's all your...
Even that is like complete... The system is weighted against Munster because they don't have as many centrally contracted players. Like, I don't understand why you think this is okay as a Munster supporter, that like, oh, that's great, we'll just take your players and then it'll be fine. There's no doubt that he's going to be...
Well, I think it's fine because it's great for Munster. I think there will be...
But it's not. It's actually completely eroding the Munster identity.
How? How is Joey Carbery moving to Munster eroding the Munster identity?
But okay, so you're focused specifically on that one instance, but all of the players who haven't come through the Munster system, they buy into it and it's grand. But like in 10 years' time, when it's like 2 players from the academy, 10 from the Leinster academy, what happens then?
No, this is... I go back to what I was saying, that this is a temporary solution to... Not even
when
a
was
solution.
The last time a temporary solution was actually only a temporary solution? It wasn't the new normal.
It's a temporary light bulb. It's outside the box thinking of a way of getting everybody who has got outrageous talent. Like, I mean, cliches like death in the family, red herring. I heard those only coming from your mouth over the last few minutes.
Alan Quillen is going to save us here. Quinny, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, lads. How are you?
Yeah, we're arguing over the Joey Carbery thing, which we'll park for a minute because this is our first time to properly see...
I knew you would be, Ger. I knew you would be.
This is our first time to properly see the 9-10 axis, the new all-Munster halfback pairing.
Yeah, look, it's... I tell you, I was a bit surprised when, I was at the press conference here when the team was announced, and there was surprise, maybe. It was rumoured earlier today that possibly Carbery would start. I didn't think it would happen maybe until the second or third test. I thought Joe Schmidt would pick the strongest possible team for this first game. But obviously he's made a number of changes, and the big standout one is Joey Carbery. So it's a great opportunity. He's had some criticism before, Joe Schmidt, for being a little bit conservative. But he's given six guys are getting an opportunity here who didn't start against England. Robbie Henshaw was one of those. He would normally be a starter. So Carbery is the big story, obviously, and it's a great opportunity for him. And after this initial little bit of surprise, I get a feeling of excitement. I think it's a big test environment for him. They're very powerful here in Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. The last time the Aussies played here, they beat New Zealand. So there's going to be a fair bit of pressure. And Michael Cheika will certainly try and target Joey Carbery.
The other big change is that the entire front row, the first choice front row, is on the bench. Which, look, I mean, it's not that unusual. You see this kind of sometimes in big matches where, particularly in the front row, players get rested and rotated in and out. But for the first test, away from home, it's a bit of a risk. He's rolling the dice on that one.
It is a risk, yeah. And I think, you always talk about impact off the bench. It's a serious impact off the bench. I think John Ryan in particular is someone that, Greg Feek has a lot of time for. I think he's worked a lot with him in the last 2 seasons and he's made a lot of improvements. I know Andrew Porter has kind of bulldozed his way onto the scene and is very, very powerful. But I think it's an opportunity for John Ryan to fight his way back into the mix, if you like. You need 3 good tight heads for particularly with the World Cup next year. So it's a great opportunity for him. I think Rob Herring as well. It's I was surprised Sean Conaghy didn't start. Having him off the bench, a lot of his caps have come off the bench. So I was surprised he didn't start. I think he'll be fuming that he's not starting, but it is an opportunity for Rob Herring. And Jack McGrath, of course, look, Healy McGrath, there's not a lot between those guys. They're 2 world-class loose heads. So Jack McGrath certainly want to go out and prove a point and try and fight for that number 1 jersey back. So it is a bit disjointed when you make 3 changes, but having the impact off the bench is certainly something that's a positive thing for them. If things are struggling a little bit, and look, let's be honest, I mean this respectfully, they're not the most dominant force in world rugby. The Australians up front, particularly in that front row. So playing the new hooker for the Reds, playing Mosa, he's a very, very powerful player. He comes in for his first cap. So a little bit surprised, Ger, with the selections, but it's a great opportunity. I think, as I said, the Carbery one is just unbelievably exciting.
The Australia team selected is obviously pretty strong as well. We've seen that they've picked Folau, they've picked
David Pocock.
Yeah, in the same team.
Yeah, I'm not sure, is Alan still there? Alan, I actually just wanted to ask you about that, about Folau and Pocock. Obviously, the whole disagreement over the same-sex marriage, like it's a bizarre thing, but it is also bizarre in the way that Pocock has accepted Folau back into his friend circle, and I wonder how much of an impact would that actually have in the dressing room, those sort of disagreements, those sort of personal things that they're telling the press has been parked and has been put aside, and what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, look, it's been mentioned a lot here. It's on all the papers here about Folau. One thing you can say, you can't argue with Folau's performances. He's been outstanding for the Waratahs. Superb again last weekend, and he's a world-class player. He's certainly the best aerial taker of the ball in world rugby, and that's one of his big strengths. And his attacking threat is superb. He scored a lot of tries this year in Super Rugby. But yeah, if I was in that dressing room, I think it's interesting when Pocock his beliefs are the exact opposite of Folau. Will it make a huge difference? I think when the heat of the battle, when you're out playing with teammates at any level, I think you kind of park that stuff to one side. It's not ideal. Michael Cheika has had to answer a fair few questions about it this week, but it's something that I think the players will be able to park to one side. They'll not be holding hands or chatting or hugging each other after the match, I think, and they don't have to hang around with each other, and not everybody gets on perfectly with everybody in all teams, but it's certainly probably a distraction that Australia could do without.
Cheika obviously knows Ireland really well, has had a very interesting relationship with the respective Irish provinces over the times, revered by Leinster fans. I'm not sure that the Munster fans think that highly of Cheika. for what he managed to do from Leinster's perspective. But he's been a really interesting Australia coach. You know, like you think of the image of him breaking that door in the match, and also almost reaching a level of success with Australia that many thought was going to be beyond the team. So they're in a bit of a rebuilding phase. They're bringing a bunch of new caps through at the moment as well. What level of expectation do you have that we're going to see a big performance from them, given that it's their first international of the season effectively?
Well, if you go back, Jared, to the last match they played, they were unbeaten so well by Scotland in Murrayfield last November. So I think they conceded 12 tries in 2 games, which is an horrendous stat for any team. And the performances have been very inconsistent. The last time they played here in Brisbane, they beat the All Blacks. So they'll certainly be trying to draw on that result, not what happened in November. They started that November series quite well by beating Wales, but then were beaten by England and hammered by Scotland. So I think there's a certain amount of pressure on him. They've been inconsistent. I was looking at some, the fixtures, Ireland's fixtures since the start of 2017. The start of that Six Nations in 2017, they lost against Scotland, obviously, in Wales in that Six Nations, but they've won 12 matches in a row. If you go back the same length of time with Australia, they've played 14 as well. They've won 7 and lost 7. And the only significant win I can see in there is against New Zealand. A couple of others against Fiji, Japan, Argentina in the Rugby Championship. They drew with South Africa. So it's been pretty inconsistent. And, I think, look, his big belief is to try and be ready for a World Cup and really, really build that depth going forward to a World Cup as well. So it's, it's like I say, his performances have been very inconsistent of his team, and he'll certainly not want to lose a Test series to Ireland, particularly given his time coaching in Leinster.
Yeah, just one last thing for me, Alan. Just on that point of Cheika and maybe his relationship with Ireland, what's your sense of his relationship with Australian fans at the moment? Like, particularly what's happened with the clubs and the situation there with the 6-day turnaround for some of the players, which he wasn't happy with. Like, is that kind of tricky relationship that he navigates with the clubs, although it's a very different setup there where they wouldn't have the same power that the RFU would have over that. There's not the same link-up, obviously, but has that manifested itself in the support for the team at all?
Well, I think there's 46,000 seats sold out and sold for the test on Saturday against the Aussies in Brisbane. So I think there's a lot of fans turning up. Of course, there's a lot of Irish here in Australia, and they'll turn up to it as well. But very, very strange that the Irish players or the Aussie players had to play in Super Rugby last weekend. It wouldn't happen here. The players are managed better. So he didn't really get any assistance particularly from the Brumbies coach, because Pocock and CEO had to play last Sunday, which is absolutely crazy. They're playing on a Sunday before 6 days before a test match, so their preparation would have been very limited in the early part of the week. So it's unheard of, really, and it's strange that kind of unity from the Super Rugby coaches isn't there for the player, isn't there for Michael Cheika. Surprising, really.
Who do you make favourites?
Say that again, Ger, sorry.
Who's going to win?
I was very confident before the selection that Ireland would start the series well and win the first test. Obviously, that's tempered a little bit now by the selections. I think the team is still good enough. I thought Australia would be a little bit vulnerable in the first test. Like I said, given their players were playing Super Rugby last weekend, and historically they've been a bit slow to start. To start well in their summer tours and rugby championships. So it's tempered a little bit now, but I still think Ireland are going to win it. I think the impact off the bench will be significant, and there's still a lot of very good Irish players in that team.
All right, good stuff, Alan. Thanks a million. Enjoy the game.
Cheers, lads.
Ireland against Australia, obviously live at Sky Sports on Saturday morning, around about 11 o'clock, I think.
I think so. I'm not quite sure. Caught me off guard there with that one. I haven't sat down and planned out my TV schedule at the weekend. It's interesting there to hear that he doesn't share my confidence in terms of this team, that the team almost kind of moved him in a direction that felt like I was confident Ireland were going to win, then I saw the team, and then I wasn't so confident anymore. I think he's still kind of leaning more towards Ireland at this point, but I think the team I think the team is a great team. I think it's an exciting selection. I think everybody who's there has already proved that they're good enough, but there's extra hunger there, particularly in that front row.
Yeah, I mean,
and particularly at 10, obviously.
We need to see a good bit more of John Ryan and Rob Herring, really. Obviously, Jack McGrath, nobody's any doubts about.
Ryan's proved himself, I think, quite well at this point. Herring, obviously, is the one person there that you could pick out as a potential weakness, but it's all potentials. Like there is nothing to suggest that Rob Herring is going to have a disaster on Saturday. It's all just how he handles the situation. And are Ireland going down without any pressure? Like, is there a sense that this is kind of like a free pop at Australia? I don't really think that that's the case, but I think there is an element of, like just with this team selection, that there is an element of experimentation about this.
Well, I think they're going down trying to win the series 3-0. That's like
that's some sort of pressure.
Keep the running total of victories going, because then there's the chance for the record against the All Blacks in Dublin. That was one of the things that they were talking about. One quick comment on this. 1 point you're missing, Ger, from Neil Casey. Says, Carbery, as an ambitious 10, wants to be a starter for Ireland in Japan. Staying at Leinster means that's impossible. Moving gives him an outside chance, same as any professional in any league. Talk of 2023 is rubbish because of injuries. Yeah, I think talk of 2023 is completely rubbish. But everybody knows that if Sexton is fit, Sexton is playing irrespective. Like, Joey Carbery could be the best player in the world for the next year, and Sexton's starting because he is Joe Schmidt's spirit animal. He is like absolutely starting for Ireland. He's like, and like deservedly so, you know?
Yeah, like nobody's disputing that. Nobody's disputing that. If Johnny Sexton is fit, he will start every game. Well, maybe not the last 1 or 2 games in the pool, given, I can't remember who they are, but they're fairly easy games. Obviously, it's kind of like the opposite of last year, where we had our 3 easy games, then into Italy, then into France, where it was a slow build, and obviously disaster struck against France, despite the fact that I think I tweeted that it was like the greatest result in the history of Irish rugby. Little did I know that it would be such a disastrous win.
A Pyrrhic victory.
Exactly. So with that the other way around, Joey Carbery will get a little bit of experience at the end of the pool stage, you'd imagine, and will he put the pressure on Jonathan Sexton? Potentially, but I just think how close the World Cup is at this point, it's impossible to overlook Sexton.